Hey, this is Chris from Game Dev Project. We have our tractor here that we separated the lights from on our last video. If you haven't seen that, you can check that out here. In today's video, we'll do all the basic configuration to get the vehicle up and running with NWH Vehicle Physics 2. We'll then make some changes to make it feel and sound like a tractor, and then set up some of the additional things like the indicators, brake lights, and the headlights. So the very first thing we want to do is unpack the prefab for our vehicle. Then just running through our vehicle, we have a convex mesh collider on the body of our vehicle, and then we have some sphere colliders which we will remove from the wheels. Then back onto the vehicle, we'll add a vehicle setup wizard, and for the vehicle preset, in this case, we'll select the semi-truck as it's the closest thing to the tractor. Then under wheels, we'll add 4 objects, and we'll add them in this order: front left, front right, rear left, rear right. Then these options here, we'll leave them as they are, but the first one is adding a camera system. The second one will give us the enter-exit points for if we want to get in and out of the vehicle. The third option, we will register the car with the vehicle changer, meaning we can get out of one vehicle, run up to another one, and get in that vehicle. So we'll run the setup. Now if we were to run this scene, nothing would happen as we don't have any of the vehicle input set up. So to do that, we'll make a new game object, and we'll call this input controller. And on this game object, we'll add an input system scene input provider and an input system vehicle input provider. So this one game object will handle all of our vehicle input, so we can add additional input providers for things like mobile touch controls or steering wheel support. So when we set up the vehicle, we added the camera system, and this scene has an additional camera, so I'll delete that out. And we'll hit play just to test out the vehicle. So now we'll take a look at configuring our vehicle a little bit further. We click on the vehicle, head down to our vehicle controller. So under control, steering, we'll change the degrees per second limit to something much lower, like 30. This will make the tractor feel much heavier when you drive, and it will avoid that unrealistic feeling when you turn right and your wheels just instantly turn right. Then we'll move on to power, under engine. So we'll really want to slow this tractor down, so the max power, if we change that to something like 40, we've taken care of the steering and the speed. Now we'll look at the sound of the tractor. So under sound, engine, and we'll just lower a few of these settings. So the bass pitch, we'll set that to 0.2. For the pitch range, we'll set this to 1. And there's a lot more you can change. So under forced induction, you can see you have your turbo whistle, turbo flutter, transmission, suspension, but we'll leave all of those as is, as I'm quite happy with the vehicle. So we'll test it out. You can see we get the much slower movement when we turn, and the tractor is much slower to take off. So now we'll look at setting up the lights on our vehicle. For this to work, they either need to be separate meshes on your vehicle, or mapped to an additional material slot that you can control through your vehicle. If neither of these apply to you, then as I mentioned earlier, you can check out the previous video where we ran through separating this from the vehicle. The link's in the description of the video. Otherwise, let's look at how we set this up. So under the FX tab and lights, we'll set up our headlights first. We'll add a new element in here. We'll change that to mesh, and we'll drag in our headlights for the mesh, and we'll set the color to white. Now if yours is set up to be controlled through materials rather than separate meshes, you would just drag in your tractor into the mesh renderer, and then for the render material index, you would have multiple materials here. So your headlights would be mapped to a different material. Just find the material that matches and apply that to the material index. So we'll keep running through. If we change to the rear lights, we'll want a tail light and a brake light. If we change both of these to mesh, and then we'll just apply the appropriate meshes, so tail lights and brake lights. Then we'll just set the emission colors to a nice red. And then for our tail lights, we'll just maybe make them a little bit darker. Then we'll move on to our indicators. We'll add an element for the left indicator and the right indicator, and again we'll change these to mesh. Then we'll add the left and the right. We'll set a color if we find a nice kind of orange color. That looks pretty good. One other thing to take note is that you need to have emissions ticked for your material. So if we find the material for our tractor, and we'll make sure emission is ticked here. Now these indicators also come with sound effects. So under sound, blinkers, you can see we have the blinker off effect here. If you don't have blinker on, we'll just add an extra element and we'll apply a blinker on. You can modify these however you wish, or you can turn the volume down. So now if we hit play, test it out. So we have our left indicator, our right indicator, hazard lights, as well as our headlights. And the headlights are also linked to the tail lights that we've set up. One last thing to point out for the lights is under FX, lights, and then front lights. If you were to have a spotlight in front of your vehicle, you can apply an extra element here, set that to light, apply that light in the light source here, and then when you turn on your headlights, it'll also turn on that light. If you're unsure of the controls for the lights, the headlights, and the hazard lights, I'll chuck them in the description, so make sure to check that out. So that wraps up the video. We now have a working tractor. In the next video, we'll take a look at some of the modules that are available. And if we take a look at the list here, you can see there's a decent list to choose from. There's a lot of things that control how your vehicle drives, as well as a fuel system. So in the next video, we'll cover that in a bit more detail. We'll actually go through some script as well, so a bit more practical how to actually use the system. We'll also cover off the damage system and how to repair your vehicle. If you have suggestions for additional things you want covered with the car controller, then let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.